One slap. That's all it took. At an event meant to celebrate heroes, one shocking moment hijacked the spotlight. And this time, not even Meghan Markle's PR machine could keep up. It wasn't a red carpet. It wasn't a royal appearance. It was Kevin Costner's quiet charity fundraiser, honoring first responders with cowboy hats, barbecues, and heartfelt speeches. But when Meghan walked in, the entire room shifted. Not because of star power, but because of the tension she dragged in with her. What started as a subtle snub, no mic, no speech slot, spiraled into something far more damaging. Eyewitnesses weren't prepared for what happened next. Meghan Markle, the Duchess who once captivated the world with her grace and poise, allegedly raised her hand, and not to wave, to slap. It wasn't a dramatic scene ripped from Netflix. It was real, raw, and silent. The kind of silence that only happens when everyone in the room witnesses something they weren't supposed to see. Hollywood has seen its fair share of meltdowns. But this wasn't just another diva moment. It was a crack in the image, a violent flash that exposed something far deeper than bad manners. And when the smoke cleared, it wasn't just Meghan who looked bad. Prince Harry stood frozen beside her, caught between loyalty and shame. Cameras caught the aftermath. But what really happened before the lenses turned on, and why the entire industry is now quietly distancing itself from the Sussex brand, is something far more explosive. Because the slap wasn't the whole story. It was just the start. She wasn't on the list. Let's start there, because that's the part everyone keeps whispering, but no one wants to say out loud. Meghan Markle was not invited to Kevin Costner's annual 805 live charity event this year, and that wasn't an oversight. According to insiders, after the chaos she allegedly caused in previous years, hogging the mic, clashing with organizers, shifting the event's energy, Meghan was quietly left off the guest list. Not blacklisted officially, just unwelcome in every way that matters. But that didn't stop her. She arrived anyway, dressed for attention, photographer in tow. Harry glued to her side like a reluctant +1. She didn't sneak in through the back. She made an entrance full of staged smiles and sharp heels, as if the gala were thrown in her honor. For a moment, it felt like the room didn't know how to react. Was this a misunderstanding? A PR stunt? Or was Meghan Markle really crashing a firefighter fundraiser she wasn't asked to attend? And let's not forget the history. The last time she showed up, reports claim she tried to grab the microphone mid-event, throwing off the program and irritating guests who came to honor real-life heroes, not reality-style royalty. Whispers from that night lingered in Santa Barbara society about drama, disruption, and diva behavior that turned a wholesome evening into a logistical nightmare. So this year, the organizers played it safe. They didn't extend an invitation. They didn't make a scene. They simply left her off the list. But Meghan doesn't do silence. She doesn't do sidelines. And she definitely doesn't do being ignored. That's why she showed up. That's why she smiled for the cameras. That's why she positioned herself next to Harry, like the main act returning for an encore no one requested. But the energy in the room? It wasn't admiration, it was discomfort. Attendees clocked the stunt immediately. They knew she hadn't been invited. And they watched as the woman once praised for elegance made herself the center of an event built for unsung heroes. The moment she walked in, the vibe shifted. Not because people were starstruck, but because they knew something was coming. And what happened next would turn an already awkward night into an all-out scandal. The night could have ended with just awkward glances and quiet whispers. But Meghan Markle doesn't do quiet. It started innocently enough. Kevin Costner's team was handing out microphones for speeches. This wasn't a Hollywood award show. No teleprompters or choreographed applause. Just heartfelt thank yous to local heroes. A young female organizer, a volunteer barely in her 20s, was tasked with one simple job: politely remind Meghan that she wasn't on the speaking schedule. No microphone, no stage time, no drama. But in that moment, something snapped. Eyewitnesses say Meghan reached for the mic anyway, hand extended with the kind of confidence that assumes the rules don't apply. The organizer, trying to stay professional, stepped in, smiling, repeating the message she'd been told to deliver. And that's when it happened. According to multiple people in the room, Meghan swung her free hand, clutching her handbag, and delivered a sharp, deliberate slap to the young woman's arm. Not a clumsy bump, not a playful tap, a full, calculated strike. The room froze. Conversation died mid-sentence. Gasps rippled through the tables. Some guests stared in disbelief. Others averted their eyes, pretending not to see what they'd just seen. The sound wasn't loud, but the impact echoed. At a fundraiser for first responders, firefighters, EMTs, heroes who risk their lives daily, the headline moment became Meghan Markle allegedly striking a charity worker. And Meghan? She didn't look shocked. She didn't apologize. She adjusted her hair, clung back to Harry's arm, and moved on as if nothing had happened. It wasn't the reaction of someone who'd lost her temper once. It was the reaction of someone who expected the room to adjust. Meanwhile, Harry stood there, awkward, frozen, hand hovering on her back. His face tight, his smile forced, not stepping in, not apologizing, just watching. The optics were brutal. A prince, raised on duty and dignity, reduced to background scenery in his wife's chaos. One slap, one mic, one moment that shifted everything. Because from that point forward, the gala wasn't about honoring heroes anymore. It was about controlling damage. You could almost hear the collective inhale. In a room full of celebrities, donors, and decorated heroes, the air changed in an instant. The moment Meghan's hand made contact, everything stopped, like a record scratch that echoed across the venue. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Laughter died like it had been strangled mid-breath. No one quite knew what to do. This was a charity event, a night designed to honor bravery, sacrifice, and community. It wasn't supposed to be dramatic, and it definitely wasn't supposed to feature a duchess allegedly assaulting a volunteer. But there they stood, Meghan, composed like nothing had happened, and the young woman she slapped, visibly stunned and frozen in place. Witnesses later described the silence as unnatural. Not just awkward, but chilling. Some guests stared, wide-eyed. Others did what people often do when reality is too shocking to process. They looked away, pretending it hadn't happened. A few whispered to each other, unsure if they'd just seen what they thought they saw. And in the center of it all stood Prince Harry. He didn't speak. He didn't reach for the girl. He didn't offer an apology. He just placed one hand gently on Meghan's back, a movement that was more mechanical than comforting. Some said he looked like he wanted to disappear. Others described his expression as tight, strained, exhausted. He wasn't angry. He wasn't protective. He looked trapped. That one gesture, the slap, didn't just leave a physical impact. It rewrote the entire energy of the night. Meghan didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She clung to Harry like a child clinging to a parent at the principal's office. Her hand gripped his with that rehearsed brand of intimacy her PR team loves to promote. But this wasn't romance. This was damage control. And that poor event worker, shaken, humiliated, and pushed aside as if her only role was to be stepped over. She didn't push back. She didn't raise her voice. She simply faded into the background, replaced by the dominating presence of a woman who, by all accounts, should never have been there in the first place. You could feel the crowd recalibrating. They came to support firefighters and EMTs. They came for Kevin Costner, for good food, for country music, and for community. But in one bizarre, unscripted moment, all of that was ripped away. The gala had become something else entirely. A Meghan Markle sideshow, again. And the scariest part? Meghan didn't look surprised. Not at what she did, not at the reaction. She scanned the room not with fear, but with calculation, as if she were already thinking ahead, planning how this would be spun. Because if there's one thing Meghan knows how to do, it's take a disaster and flip it into a headline that works in her favor. But that kind of control only works when no one's watching. This time, the entire room was. Within hours, the machinery was already in motion, while the rest of the room was still processing what they'd just seen. Meghan Markle allegedly slapping a charity worker, Prince Harry paralyzed beside her. Her public relations team was doing what it does best, rewriting the narrative. And they didn't waste a second. By morning, headlines were beginning to surface, but not about the slap, not about the stunned silence, not even about the disrupted fundraiser. No, the coverage told a very different story. Meghan Markle graciously steps aside to let Harry shine. Elegant Meghan supports husband at heroic fundraiser. Duchess plays the quiet role for her prince. One after another, glossy articles and staged photos began flooding outlets like People magazine and Hello, as if they had been pre-drafted in case of emergency. The spin was clean, polished, and precision-timed. Meghan wasn't the problem. She was the poised partner in the background, letting Harry have his moment, showing restraint and humility. Except, that's not what witnesses saw. Multiple people in the room said Meghan was anything but quiet or in the background. She arrived with her own photographer. She hovered next to Harry like a shadow. Every movement was calculated, every smile for the camera. Eyewitnesses described her as tense, controlling, and unwilling to let Harry take a single step without her. There were no signs of her stepping aside. She was clinging, physically and metaphorically, refusing to fade into the background. And that mic incident? Erased? Not a single outlet mentioned the slap. Not a whisper. Not a hint. It was as if it never happened. As if dozens of people hadn't watched it unfold in real time. The silence wasn't accidental. It was strategic. An intentional effort to suffocate a damaging story before it could spread. And if you blinked, you might have missed it. But for those who were there, the contrast between reality and reporting was impossible to ignore. This wasn't just image repair. It was a full-on rewrite of the night's history. A whitewash. A vanishing act. Meghan didn't just dodge accountability. She buried the moment under a carefully staged media blanket. And Harry? He became the centerpiece of the rewritten script. The headlines praised him for stepping into the spotlight, as if he had chosen the moment, rather than being shoved into it by circumstance and damage control. It was PR theater at its finest. But behind the flattering headlines, behind the professional photos and media buzzwords, the people in that room weren't fooled. The internet wasn't fooled. The story couldn't be erased. Not completely, because something had shifted, and no amount of media polish could hide the cracks forming in the public's perception. The slap might have been physically minor, but its aftermath was massive. It revealed something ugly, not just in Meghan's behavior, but in the cold efficiency of the image machine behind her. A machine that doesn't just spin stories, it erases the truth in real time. By now, it's no longer a one-off. That's the part people are starting to say out loud. The part that makes this alleged slap at Kevin Costner's fundraiser feel less like a shocking accident and more like the latest entry in a very public pattern. Because when it comes to Meghan Markle, the spotlight doesn't just follow her. She chases it, grabs it, owns it, even when it doesn't belong to her. From the very beginning, there's been a trail of scenes, spectacles, and strategically staged moments. And every time the world starts to move on, something else happens. Is something that snaps the focus right back to her. Remember the Invictus Games? What should have been a triumph for wounded veterans turned into a tabloid circus, with Meghan injecting herself into every photo, every appearance, every stage. Royal experts quietly asked why she was needed at every event, why Harry couldn't lead solo. The answer was obvious: she wouldn't let him. Then there was the Oprah interview, timed with surgical precision, airing just as Prince Philip lay on his deathbed. Meghan painted herself as the misunderstood outsider, the victim of royal coldness. But behind the emotion and music score level editing, critics pointed out the contradictions, the vague accusations, and the convenient memory lapses. Even now, the line, "I didn't Google Harry," gets rolled eyes in media circles. It's not just interviews. It's not just mic grabs. It's a strategy, a method of entering spaces not designed for her and reshaping the narrative around her presence. Hollywood insiders see it. Palace aides lived it. Even fans have started noticing. Whether it's crashing a red carpet she wasn't scheduled for, posing like she's the guest of honor at someone else's award ceremony, or allegedly striking a volunteer at a charity event, Meghan doesn't seem to show up unless she's the center of attention, or becomes it. And it's not just the attention, it's the aftermath. The frantic spin, the glowing press releases, the soft focus photographs that pop up hours later to reframe the story, the calculated hand-holding with Harry, the overly staged kisses, the camera-ready hugs with strangers who may or may not have asked for them. It's not connection, it's performance. And it's not just Meghan people are watching anymore, it's Harry. The once fiery prince who used to cut through tabloid noise with real, unfiltered charm, now looks like a man perpetually trying to clean up after a storm he married into. With every incident, he gets quieter, more awkward, less engaged. And that's not just gossip, it's on tape. His hand-holding now looks like an obligation. His smiles look glazed. The PDA, once sweet, now feels like a coping mechanism. Because the truth is, what happened at Kevin Costner's charity event didn't come out of nowhere. It was a boiling point, a culmination, a perfectly predictable escalation of a long-running pattern of public domination, dramatic flair, and tightly choreographed image control. And in that sense, the slap wasn't just a scandal, it was a symptom. This was supposed to be their night. The firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, and local heroes. The ones who rush into danger when everyone else runs the other way. Kevin Costner's 805 Live fundraiser wasn't about fame or flashing bulbs. It was about honoring the backbone of California's emergency response. It was about gratitude, service, and giving back. But the moment Meghan Markle walked in, that mission was quietly pushed aside. The event was meant to feel grounded. Think country music, cowboy hats, and home-style barbecue. Not couture gowns and chaos. These were the people who fought wildfires, saved families, and pulled crash victims from twisted wreckage. And they were finally getting a night to be seen, to be thanked. But instead, the headlines were about a Duchess and a microphone. Instead of covering the local fire department's heroic rescue story, the press covered Meghan's entrance, her outfit, and her hand-gripping Harry like a lifeline. Instead of interviewing paramedics who'd saved lives during floods, outlets ran flattering blurbs about Meghan, supporting her husband from the sidelines. And after the alleged slap, the event itself didn't even make the front page. The real tragedy? That worker, the young woman reportedly struck while trying to maintain order, was part of the organizing team honoring those heroes. Her job was to protect the structure of the evening, to make sure the focus stayed where it belonged. And for that, she allegedly got slapped and silenced. Meanwhile, donors, some of whom had written checks with 5 or 6 figures, started expressing quiet disapproval. They didn't show up for celebrity drama. They came to support a cause. They wanted the spotlight on people who ran into burning buildings, not royals running from their pasts. And even Kevin Costner, the man behind the event, found himself overshadowed. What should have been a victory lap for his ongoing dedication to the community became a footnote beneath Meghan's media machine. No one was talking about the family's help. No one was highlighting the First Responder Memorial Fund. All they could focus on was the Duchess's alleged slap, her chilling silence, and Harry's ghost-like demeanor. It wasn't just embarrassing, it was insulting. To the people being honored, to the people who donated, and to the cause itself. This wasn't a Hollywood premiere. It was a thank you, a moment of peace. And instead, it turned into a headline-grabbing disaster, orchestrated by someone who wasn't even invited. Imagine dedicating your life to saving others, finally being honored for it, and then getting bumped by a duchess with a handbag and a habit of hijacking the narrative. That's what these heroes were forced to endure. And the most disturbing part? This wasn't the first time, but it might be the one they won't forgive. Hollywood doesn't do drama for free. Behind every red carpet smile and glowing headline is a network of gatekeepers, agents, producers, publicists, studio execs, who all understand one thing: image is everything. And when someone becomes a liability, the system doesn't explode. It quietly closes the door. And that's exactly what's happening to Meghan Markle. In the days following Kevin Costner's charity disaster, the whispers turned to conversations. The slap, still absent from mainstream coverage, but not from Hollywood's inner circles. Word travels fast in this town. And when the chatter hits the private dinners, backlot meetings, and group chats of the industry's power players, reputations change overnight. Producers who once saw Meghan as a marketable figure now see baggage, the kind of unpredictable spotlight that overshadows every project she touches. Executives who once welcomed her into streaming deals are now rethinking future collaborations, not because of one outburst, but because of the growing pattern, the growing risk, of being attached to the Meghan Markle brand. Even before the slap, signs were everywhere. Her Spotify deal, abruptly canceled after just one season. Her Netflix show, publicly mocked and quietly buried. And now, the charity incident. An uninvited appearance, an alleged physical altercation, and a staged PR cleanup that fooled no one. All this at an event for first responders, no less. For an industry obsessed with optics, that's radioactive. And then there's the A-list crowd. The Oprah Winfreys and Tyler Perrys, who once threw open their homes and platforms, these days, they're silent. No Instagram posts, no glowing quotes, no follow-up interviews. The doors haven't slammed shut, but they're not swinging open anymore. Because here's the thing, Hollywood forgives eccentric. It forgives drama. What it won't forgive is someone who pulls the spotlight away from the cause, hijacks the narrative, and makes everything about themselves, especially at someone else's event. Nobody wants to invite the guest who becomes the story. Red carpet planners, quietly moving her name off the list. Brand partnerships, drying up behind the scenes. Even the charity circuit, once her safe space for appearances and applause, is cooling. Organizers saw what happened at Kevin Costner's event. They saw the alleged slap. They heard the chatter. And now they're asking, what happens if she does this at our gala? For someone who fought so hard to break into the elite American circle, Meghan may be finding herself on the edge of exile. Not by decree, but by quiet omission. Because in Hollywood, when the phone stops ringing, it doesn't come with an explanation. It just stops. It was written all over his face. As the cameras rolled and the scandal quietly detonated around him, Prince Harry didn't lash out. He didn't defend the charity worker. He didn't storm out or take the mic to smooth things over. He just stood there, frozen, awkward, hand hovering near Meghan's back, like a man unsure whether to comfort her or himself. That single image captured everything. The shame, the discomfort, the trapped. Because Harry's not the same prince the world once knew. The cheeky, rebellious royal who broke protocol with charm and threw back drinks with soldiers now walks with stiff shoulders and a forced smile. At that fundraiser, he looked more like an accessory than an equal. More like a handler than a husband. And it's not the first time. Increasingly, Harry seems like a man performing a role he didn't audition for. The supportive husband, the doting partner, the forever plus one. And while the palace may have once boxed him into formality, this new role comes with its own kind of cage. One built out of staged affection, forced optics, and non-stop damage control. Every time Meghan grabs the spotlight, Harry is dragged in behind her. At Kevin Costner's event, it was painfully obvious. She clung to his hand like a lifeline, not out of affection, but strategy. Every camera click was choreographed. Every glance, every hug, every inch of proximity was meant to signal unity. But Harry? He looked like a man going through the motions. Eyewitnesses described him as tight-jawed, disconnected, absent. His smiles never reached his eyes. His movements were stiff, his hands shoved into his pockets, his posture closed off. He wasn't leading the evening. He was surviving it. And when the alleged slap occurred, he didn't flinch, he didn't react, he didn't even seem surprised. That was the most haunting part. Because if this was shocking to the public, what does it say that Harry seemed to have seen it before? His silence wasn't neutral, it was loaded. Loaded with years of conflict, with tension, with the emotional toll of living in two worlds. One where he must defend his wife at all costs, and one where he's quietly losing his own identity. Every scandal pulls him further from his royal roots. Every PR stunt makes him look less like a man in control, and more like a man caught in the undertow of a brand he can't escape. And what's worse, Hollywood isn't looking at Harry with admiration anymore. They're looking at him with pity. The prince who once charmed presidents and soldiers now stands off to the side, while Meghan commands the lens. Even at events that were never meant to be about them, he's no longer the focus, he's the fallout. Insiders say there's tension growing between the Sussexes and Harry's old allies. Friends who once supported his departure from the monarchy are now pulling back. Some even reportedly blame Meghan for isolating him, from family, from the UK, from his sense of self. And events like this only deepen that divide. Because the man at Kevin Costner's gala wasn't a royal, wasn't a rebel, wasn't even a husband standing tall. He was a man quietly breaking in real time. They used to call themselves salt and pepper, in sync, unshakable, complementary. But now, the blend looks off and the cracks are showing. For years, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry projected the image of a united front, holding hands, finishing each other's sentences, coordinated outfits, matching smiles, a brand built on togetherness. But if Kevin Costner's charity event revealed anything, it's this: the performative gloss is starting to peel. And what's underneath looks fractured, strained, and deeply uncomfortable. At first glance, they still play the part. Meghan was gripping Harry's hand with rehearsed intensity. Harry smiles dutifully when the cameras flash. The PDA is still there, but it's changed. It feels tighter, desperate, like a show they have to put on, because not doing it would raise more questions than it answers. And yet the body language keeps betraying them. Meghan pulls. Harry resists. Meghan commands the room. Harry fades into the wall. Their movements are no longer in rhythm. They're in negotiation. Even the smallest gestures, like Meghan handing Harry the microphone instead of letting him pick it up himself, feel like power plays cloaked in affection. Letting him shine has turned into making him dependent. Observers at the gala caught every beat. When Meghan allegedly slapped the event worker, Harry didn't jump in. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know what to do. He froze. Then, when Meghan reached for his hand immediately after, like a child seeking protection, he didn't resist, but he didn't embrace her either. It was a transaction, not a moment. And that's the danger with performative unity. Eventually, the act breaks down under pressure. Behind the scenes, sources say tensions have been brewing for a while. Meghan reportedly feels sidelined, no longer getting the media attention she once commanded. Her podcast is gone. Her Netflix momentum fizzled. Her Hollywood shine is dimming. And she's said to be pushing harder than ever to stay relevant, even if that means dragging Harry to events where neither of them was invited. Harry, on the other hand, looks worn down. Each public appearance seems to take more out of him. Gone is the mischievous grin, the spark, the confidence. What's left is a man who looks like he's performing a version of himself for a world he no longer fits into. And that dynamic isn't lost on the public. People are watching now, not just for the drama, but for the discomfort. They're asking hard questions. Is Harry happy? Is Meghan spiraling? Are they truly a team? Or is one dragging the other through the fire? The slap didn't just ignite a media frenzy, it reignited doubts about whether this marriage is more performance than partnership. Because here's the truth, no matter how many photos they stage, or how many times they kiss in front of flashing bulbs, the tension is slipping through, in every awkward gesture, every hollow smile. Every moment where Harry looks like he's somewhere else, anywhere else. The fairy tale isn't falling apart in a dramatic explosion. It's eroding, slowly, quietly, one awkward appearance at a time. What started as a charity event to honor heroes ended with a question echoing across Hollywood and royal circles alike. Has Meghan Markle finally crossed the line? Not just because of the alleged slap, not just because of the media spin, but because the pattern, the relentless thirst for control, the calculated photo ops, the hijacking of headlines, has stopped being compelling and started becoming corrosive. At Kevin Costner's gala, the real stars were meant to be the first responders. Instead, their moment was stolen, not by accident, but by design. And as Meghan inserted herself where she wasn't invited, allegedly struck a young woman, and staged yet another supportive wife narrative for the cameras, the illusion cracked wide open. Hollywood isn't clapping anymore. The invitations are quieter. The tolerance for chaos is thinner. The charm offensive is no longer offensive. It's just tired. And then there's Harry, once the world's most eligible royal, now looking more like a man slowly losing himself in someone else's script. The fundraiser didn't just expose Meghan's need for control. It exposed Harry's silence, his stillness, his slow fade into the background of his own life. The slap may have been the spark, but the blaze was already burning. Through canceled deals, through awkward appearances, through the growing whispers that Meghan Markle doesn't just attract attention, She demands it, devours it, and leaves everything else in her shadow. But here's the warning the industry is whispering now. The spotlight that once made her shine may now be burning her alive. And if this pattern continues, if every stage becomes another scandal, every appearance another performance, then Meghan won't just lose public favor. She'll lose the very empire she built in front of that camera lens. Because in Hollywood, in royalty, in life, there's a fine line between being watched and being avoided. And Meghan Markle, she's teetering right on the edge.